Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This month, as you know, we're going to be talking about relationships. And we have a very special couple with us that's very near and dear to my heart, Terry and Kevin. They have been
Hello.
married. Hi.
Hi.
I'm so
Howdy.
excited to have you guys. They have been married for 32 years.
AKA forever.
Forever. And I have known you guys for 15 years of that. So I am very excited to have you on today because I've watched you guys through your marriage for the last 15 years, and then I've heard stories about all the other awesome years that you guys have had, and not so awesome years.
Yeah.
Which is normal. It's normal, which is what we do here. We talk about the fucking normal shit. So, I want to know, just get right into it. I want to know what what are the like top 3 things that have helped you guys
Yeah, does anybody
stay
ever
married?
ask you guys, like, what's the secret to a long relationship? Because there's not too many people these days that have been in relationships as long as you guys.
Yeah.
I don't think there is much of a secret. it's it takes a lot of time, effort, willingness, uh, and then for Kevin and I mean, we've hit the point to where we have a lot of faith, outside of our relationship, when it comes to maybe a higher power, but yet we have a lot of trust with each other. We can be open with each other. I mean, it's ultimately we finally have hit that trust point.
How long do you think it took to hit that trust point?
Oh my
Ooh.
God.
Asking for
Probably,
me, not a friend.
I don't know, babe. I mean, for you, it might be different for the both of us too.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's been various levels. I mean, just recently, I felt something change in our relationship, and it almost brings tears to my eyes because it's like a miracle. Um, we bought this trailer, and it was one of the things we wanted to do when we got retired is, go camping and fishing, and because I'm blessed, she likes to fish, and that's one of the things we do together. And actually, we're up in Greer, and it was just the two of us. Um, and I was walking back, and she was sitting outside the trailer. Actually, she was standing in the doorway of the trailer. I remember standing in the doorway, and I looked at her, and it's like I just fell in love with her all over again.
Oh my
Aww.
heart. You're gonna
Something,
make me cry.
just
Yeah.
something just twisted or pushed her or whatever. I don't know how to explain it. But it's a new level of trust. I trust her with anything. I'll tell her, my fears. I trust her with my angers, my likes, my dislikes. One of the hardest things we've got to do recently is my son was killed in a car accident.
I'm so sorry to hear that, by the way. I hope you guys are doing as best as you can.
It's been hard. It's been hard, and I'm trying to keep it together for her because she. One of the reasons she married me is I had baggage. I had kids, and she wanted a large family.
You married him for the baggage. That's
Yes,
awesome.
No.
Contribution. How about that?
well,
I always wanted to have 5 kids,
You
and
you
I
already had
when
5 kids?
I've always wanted to have 5 kids.
Oh, you okay.
And when I was growing up and just thought, I think a really good number would be 5. And of course, I've only naturally, bore one, the oldest, my daughter. But then You know, when he and I hooked up, he had 4. And that wasn't the reason why I married him, but it was one of the, dreams that, that was answered for me. So, I mean, I just ran with it. I didn't fight it. I didn't, think anything different, or I didn't even process it. I just did it. I don't know why, but, it was never a concern of mine of him having 4 kids, and then the baggage that they brought along, but, and all of their, the things that they were dealing with. Now, they were really young, so, I mean, I think Jeremy was 8, and Jeremy's the oldest of his 4. And was he 8 or maybe 7?
It was 7.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you always wanted 5, and then you had 1 and met a guy that had 4, and then you got your 5.
Divine intervention.
Well, yeah, it's no secret that we understand it. It's definitely intervention.
yeah, because it
but
wasn't something that I had made happen.
She mothered them like they were her own.
Mm-hmm.
And not that they were stepkids. She raised them like they were her own, and it was amazing. And we struggled with that a little bit, trying to raise her daughter and her trying to raise my sons, and it got different at times. We had a lot of
Family meetings.
yes. Yes.
You have to.
We'll call that
Holly-
family meetings. Yes, we
Holly
had that.
does that. Holly co-parents with her significant other, so
Yeah,
she's
so you
shaking her
understand.
head like yes.
Yeah.
It's different.
Well, and
Especially-
everybody parents different, so you come to this new dynamic where people are parenting differently, and then you have to figure out a new way that you're going to go about doing this that meshes for
Exactly.
everybody, and that could be very hard sometimes.
Well, there was a lot of struggles, and Terry, I think there's a lot of surrenders that happen in a marriage. I believe I'll call them surrenders.
Oh, I like that.
I like that better than compromise.
Well, yeah, it's
Compromise makes me want to punch somebody.
Right.
It's surrenders. I mean, you got to come to the point where, I really realized that my boys were playing us against each other.
Oh, yeah, they will too.
Oh, they did, and so I had to get on the same page with her. So that's what we sat down and we had a few family meetings, just the 2 of us.
I call them come to Jesus moments.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It was, it was an eye-opening experience. We had to figure out how we're going to do this, because trying to do it separately, it just was not working. It's insanity. It's insanity.
And the best thing out of all of it was that our kids got along. There was no
Jealousy and fighting.
well, I mean,
Normal fighting probably.
Right. But that's how it was. I mean, when even though my daughter was the only child per se, she liked being in charge. She liked controlling things because she was the oldest, and of course she's
Yeah.
my daughter. And but the kids, but his boys, and then when we had his daughter with us too, I didn't see it, going out of its way to where we had to step in, and tell Holly to stop. Never saw that.
No.
Yeah, the kids all, if they had any issues, they probably, dealt with it themselves. I mean, there was maybe a couple incidences where, where 2 of them, and I'm not going to name any names, but 2 of them really got into it, and it was, I was at my wit's end, and Kevin wasn't there when it happened, And I, I was going to therapy at the time for something. And my therapist named it white anger. And it was like I was so frozen and so shocked and so angry, I was afraid to do or say anything. And when Kevin came home, I talked to him about it. And I don't really remember the outcome, to be honest with you. It's just that I felt comfortable enough to tell him. And I pretty much told him, I said, I'm done. I'm done with this. That was totally uncalled for. And I was done. And he calmed us all down. Yeah, I don't know how, but he calmed us all down. And, we worked well together. We do so much better when we're together. When we're apart, we're terrible with each other, and we've experienced that. And I think some of that too, Leanna, when we lived apart for those 2 years. And so, we've really, I never imagined I would be in this marriage. But we worked hard to keep it. And I'm just real grateful for that.
That's
That's amazing.
I want to ask, is that do you think that's the secret is when things get tough, you work through it and don't give up on it? Because I feel like there comes this point in a relationship where you think maybe it's not going to work out. And you have a choice to either...
It happens. That happened a lot.
Yes.
I know it happened with me. Because there were times early in our marriage where I grabbed Holly and we split. I didn't know where I was going, but I just removed myself from it, And then the last time that I did it, my daughter told me, you got to deal with this. I'm tired of just leaving like that.
Out of the mouth of babes.
I was going to say that too.
And so...
You talk about the early stages of your marriage, and I'm assuming the raising the kids and kind of working through those pains were part of an earlier stage too. How do you think, so first off, I want to ask, two-part question. Were your guys' parents married long-term?
Yeah.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Both sides?
Mm-hmm.
So
you guys had a good example.
So you had that example, maybe.
Well, I did. I can only speak for myself. My parents were married 45. Oh, my dad just passed last year, but they were married. So they were married 66 years.
Oh, wow.
And the one thing that I tried to bring in our marriage, and I share with the kids, a lot, is that we are not to fight in front of the kids. And because what I got from my parents was my dad had a really high profile job, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom and wife. And she, every time my dad came home from work, she would have dinner cooking. He would come home from work and they would go into the bedroom so my dad can change his clothes in that. And during that time, that's when my dad would let things go, I'm sure, about his job and that. And then my mom would talk about her day too. I just assumed that's what was happening. And it happened every time he came home from work, if she was home, every time. And, it took me a long time to finally realize, when I got much older, what that was all about, because I never saw them argue. Now, I've seen them when they've been mad at each other, and my mom was the silent type, and my dad would just, but they would not take it out on us at all whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I learned. It wasn't to fight in front of the kids, but yet, at the same time, not bring them into it. And I tell you, there were a few times where because I would leave and take Holly, I was bringing her into it. You know, and for her to tell me, we got to stop this, I've had enough of this, I'm not going next time you want to leave, kind of thing. That's when I realized I was bringing her into this and having her deal with our mess, you know, which we were the adults. We're to be the example. And so, I mean, that's how I dealt. That's what I learned.
And
But-
Kevin, you might have had a different experience. Is
Yeah,
what I got out of it.
a lot different. But just to reiterate on what Terry was saying there, that was a shock to me because Holly actually was okay staying with me. Okay?
That's when you know you've made it as a family.
Yes. Yes. And that was, you know, that's when, I guess it's another eye-opening that I knew I had to save it, you know. And there was times, I mean, my folks are still married, 66 years too. They had ups and downs. I know there was a lot of times my dad was gone. And I think that might have been because they were separating. Not real sure. They never talked about it. My family didn't talk about a whole bunch of stuff like that. We didn't have a whole bunch of feelings. We didn't hug each other. My dad, they both came from Depression era. They didn't have anything. So he worked and worked and worked to give us everything that we wanted. And that's really not what I wanted. I wanted to play with my dad, you know, as a kid. And he just wasn't around. And I know they're having problems because I remember my mom playing this record album. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Petulia Clark.
No.
She was a singer. Don't Sleep in the Subway, Darling. That
No.
song.
I'm gonna look it up now.
Yeah, I know she played this album over and over and over again. I know she was depressed. Now that I look at it, I didn't know then, but I can see back now what was going on. And so I didn't learn any communication skills. Okay, what I learned was that the man went out and made the money and did what he had to do to feed everybody and clothe everybody. Whether he was around or not didn't matter. You know, it was just that as long as you made sure that people were fed and clothed and had a house over their roof over their head. And that's what I learned. Of course, you know, getting married with Terry is my final marriage. And I had some experience before that, which I don't really care to get into too much, but she was very strong-willed. And, you know, a single successful woman by herself. And here's this guy who's got this ego that says, I want to take care of everybody.
The things we learn from our parents.
Yes, trying to take care of her. And, you know, that's not what she wanted. She wanted a partner.
How long did it take you to turn from being the guy that was trying to take care of everybody to the partner?
I think it happened in stages. The first stage was right before we moved to Show Low. Because, I mean, actually it was before that. I hate to talk about it, but there was some infidelity on my part, you know, which I regret. And we had some difficulties where I thought, and I'm going to bring this up, I thought she was using sex as a weapon. And that was my thoughts. And my idea was marriage was, you know, you may love frequently, you know, that's how I got closer to her. Okay. I was afraid to talk about my feelings and stuff, so once we made love, I was really calm and relaxed, and I would actually cuddle with her. I don't think she ever had that before. I don't know. But that was where I felt most connected at that time, and we weren't doing that. I mean, Holly was going through a rough time in her teenage years. Terry was struggling with that, and I mean, all kinds of things were coming from all sides. And then, I lost my job, and I've been prone to depression, and I guess I just tried to fix it any way I could, you know. And I was really, that was a real humbling experience. I thought for sure we were going to get divorced, and I'd been through that again, and I didn't want to go through it again with all the kids, and I surrendered again to that point, you know, and I promised her I would do whatever I had to do.
Well, and I need to add to that, because when it all happened, of course I was, just crazy, and I didn't know it had happened. He was gone, and that's how I found out. And then, but when he came home, people, there was a couple friends of mine that knew what was happening, and I was at a meeting, and I had heard from him, and I says, I got to get home to him. I got to get home. And that was it was the only thing that was just sucking me in, is that I've just got to get home to him, and he had been gone for a few days, and some of the women at this meeting that I was at were telling me, no, you're not to go home. And, it's what he's done is just, and I'm like, you don't understand. I just need to get home. And, so I got there, and there was no fighting. There was no, screaming and yelling. I remember him just being really sad, and I knew it wasn't a show. You know what I mean?
How long were you guys married at this point when this happened?
7 years.
Okay.
So, and the thing that I, that I held on to was that he never blamed me. Never said it was my fault. Never said, it's because you did this and you did that. He never blamed me for his action. It was his doing. I had nothing to do with it. And that's what kept me with him.
Did you feel like you contributed to that in any way as like the woman or wife, or?
Prior to, I always thought I did, because I always thought I saw it coming for some reason, and I late, no, I don't think I did. And I think that's what was the realization when I left that meeting, when everybody said, no, you don't go, I think that's when it hit me that it wasn't my fault, and then for him to tell me and continuously, that it wasn't. And the thing that came out of all of that was that we had conversations every day after that, after work. We would sit in the backyard and we would talk, and he gave me the chance to vent. I mean, I got to say everything I thought of him, everything that I felt. I got to vent, and he took it all in and listened to me. And
I
want to circle back because
beautiful.
I feel like you guys have brought up several important key things that I just want to highlight. Firstly, Kevin, that's really vulnerable of you to even bring up this. Like you're spilling your secrets for the world right now, and I just want you to know that I appreciate that. You're being vulnerable and you're saying, "Hey, I did this. I messed up." And you're owning up to it, and I just think that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Especially as a man, because sometimes men have problems with that. But I want to touch on something you said. You said that you had felt like she was using sex as a weapon. And I feel like as women, we're taught sex is a weapon. And it's one of the few weapons that we have. And not to say that, Terry, you were using it as a weapon, but I just find that you said that very interesting. Because we learn these things culturally. And then in marriage, if we want to have a marriage that survives, a relationship that lasts, we have to unlearn these cultural things that we've been taught. And we also have to recognize and give ourselves grace that, like, it's not our fault that we have these programs running in the background. We didn't know that those were not going to be helpful to us. They were just passed down generation after generation.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that you guys have had to work through. And then having to work through this infidelity thing, that's huge. That's the deal breaker for a lot of people.
Again, culturally, it's socially acceptable to say just leave him.
Yeah, and most people will tell you that.
Yeah.
And it takes bravery on your part, Terry, to listen to that advice and say, no, that's not what I'm going to do.
No. It's not where my heart is telling me to go, so
Yeah.
I'm going to go where my heart and my soul is telling me to go. I think that's so brave.
Yeah.
So, Terry, I heard you mention that you go to meetings. I know that you guys are in recovery, so I want to just ask like a brief question about if the recovery piece is any sort of aspect to maintaining your marriage.
Oh God.
Oh, hell yeah. and you know, and I'm not gonna, I'll say whatever, I feel comfortable saying is that
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
husband and I, Kevin and I, we met in treatment. So we were both learning what recovery was all about in this hospital, for a month. Now, he had been in there a few weeks prior to me. So, he was gone before my month was up, but that's where we met. And then I don't know, I mean, I could tell you all kinds of stories, but
No.
we one thing that we both learned when we got serious with each other, and it was probably about 3 years later after we got out of treatment. There's things that went on, in those 3 years with him and with me and all that. But what was I going to say? Anyway, we knew that our recovery was number one. He knew it and I knew it. And we knew not to get into each other's recovery. And yeah, we tried. And yeah, there were times, when I would say, don't you need to go to a meeting or you need to call your sponsor? And we just learned, the disease that we had, I may not have had control over it, but yet I controlled how I was going to do it, and how, when it was going to be my time to get clean, I was going to get clean, but yet in recovery, I like to think that we're helping each other by saying, don't you think you need to go to a meeting? But I know I wouldn't want anybody to say that to me. I need to, maybe just from a sponsor, but you know what I mean? Because when we would say those things to each other, it was a form of control.
It depends on how we said it.
Right.
Sometimes
Now, see,
it's the tone.
Yes,
right,
yes.
right. And so we just stayed out of each other's programs. Now we do talk about, what we experience, with our sponsors sometimes and with our sponsees sometimes. And we do keep things between the two of us only, and
I think that's important.
it has helped. Too. Yeah, it helped.
Like you're saying you were at the first you were trying to micromanage each other, and then you recognized that was not helpful, and you stopped. And I feel like that's such an important thing in a relationship, because I've done that too, where I'm trying, like, his success is my success, and if he's failing, then I'm failing. But if you could just back up for a second and allow him, like, surrender, like, his journey is his journey. And even though I'm walking next to him, that's his journey. And I have to surrender that he's going to learn the lessons he needs to learn, and he's going to do what he needs to do for himself. And it's actually worse if I'm trying to control him and manage his journey. It's going to knock him off of his path, and he's not going to get where he needs to go, or it's going to take him longer because I'm trying to force him down the road instead of just letting him walk.
I think there's a whole nother level of trust, too, that you have in your partner.
And you have to like each other. You have to honor each other's journey. You can't, if I don't respect you and I don't believe in you, then it's not going to work, because I'm going to be trying to micromanage your path instead of like trusting you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it feels good when your partner trusts you to be able to do that.
Yep.
That's what's
happened. But then I have to have, my higher power, I've got to have that connection with my higher power first before I can even change where I'm at sometimes, and because just one example, when I would have to confront my daughter, and this was something I went through for, all through her teenage years, but whenever I had to confront my daughter and do it in a manner where we wouldn't get in a fight, I would stand outside her bedroom door and pray. But as soon as I opened that door, we fight every single time, every time. And I don't know, I never knew how to let that go. And the only way was, I'm notorious for wanting to find a resolution and solve this problem. Okay?
I know somebody else like that.
And and if Kevin and I had a disagreement, I wanted to get it fixed now.
Actually, I think that's my partner more. He immediately, I want to take a minute and think about it.
And that's the way Kevin is. So this whole thing about opposites attract.
There's always one of those. Yeah. There's going to be one person in the relationship that wants to solve it immediately, and the other person that wants to take a beat to process. Mm-hmm. And those two people will always be in the same relationship together.
and for me to be like that is so self-will run riot for me. To want to confront the issue now. Let's get this resolved. And it was mostly so I could feel better. Mm-hmm. For myself. And I was never ever thinking about the other person's way of how they were going to process it, and that's the way it was with me and Holly. And so I had quit. I finally realized, I've got to look at my, being and how I'm approaching these things. And I was doing it, even though I was asking God for help, I was still in the middle of self-will.
You were asking for help, but you weren't letting him help you.
Learned behaviors, too. Those are learned behaviors. Yeah. Or unlearned behaviors, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So my biggest character defect.
We all have them.
And when you're in a relationship with somebody, there's going to always be things that you don't like about each other. It's just, I feel like you have to remember the reasons you do like each other so that you can kind of move, deal with let those little things go, Yeah. Because if you focus on the things that drive you crazy, then you'll go crazy.
Well, the thing is Kevin knows what I don't like. And I know what he doesn't like about me, and so a lot of times we don't stop doing that, but for me, whenever Kevin starts acting like in a way or doing something in a way that I don't prefer, I've got to work on accepting it, because he's going to do it anyway. He's got to process whatever he's going to do, and, but it's another form of trust, big time.
And surrender too.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I don't, yeah. In that case, it's real hard for me to surrender when I want to get something fixed.
Yep.
I just found it so much easier for me to surrender these days, and I just do it. It's second nature. It's not giving up. It's just saying, well, this is gonna have a process, and let the process play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
It's so much easier when you can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to start surrendering at first.
It is.
But once you realize how much easier it makes it, because sometimes you're not even, it's like you're stressed about the stress of the situation. It's not even the situation. You're just stressed about the stress of the situation. And if you could just let that go and let it play out how it's supposed to, then it's much less stressful.
Well, that stress has done a lot of damage to my health, and I've got to watch that. That's one of the things I'm watching because of the things going on, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, and all this stuff. I never had that. I was, I was young and indestructible.
Do you guys think that maturing as adults too has helped you mature in your relationship? I feel like that's kind of a given, but I just want to point out that when you're young in relationship, you maybe don't know all the things yet. You haven't gone through all the lessons, and as you get older and you learn more and you know more.
True.
Yeah.
The problem is are you willing to learn?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us aren't, and we'll carry that same pattern into our grave. And I see that.
Yeah, I bet
happen a lot.
everybody listening, or even us on this episode, probably can name 5 people like that at least.
Yeah. Or we are that person.
Or we are that person.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean,
if you keep attracting the same person with a different face, you may be the common denominator.
Yeah.
I say that with love, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one thing that's, if all else fails, I just got to look her right in the eyes, and then I melt, and I'm done. That's all I got to do.
That's all I got to do too, is just have them look at me.
Well, and then you remember the spark, that reason that ultimately we love each other, and this.
Yeah, and there's our arguments are so much different now than the way they used to be. I mean, big time. How
so?
Well, I mean, if anything was going on between the two of us, he never wanted to talk about it. I did, because of the way I am, and when he says that he surrenders and lets it go, I would think that's him not caring and not wanting to get into the solution.
And you'd get even more pissed.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible. And I mean, it was just, a vicious, circle. And then it was like he was throwing it under the rug. So more things were just piling up that we weren't dealing with or we weren't talking about, and I would just get so angry, but I wouldn't give up though. I just wouldn't give up, and plus, honey, what I mean by not giving up, I knew it was going to change. I wouldn't give up because I just knew it was going to change at some point.
The times you got into my face so much, and I said, we got to break and stop, and you wouldn't stop. Do you remember those?
Oh, well, yeah.
And didn't you saw when my fist started clenching, that's when I know I'm in trouble. And
right.
And I warn you.
I know.
And you wouldn't stop.
That
was the big thing.
And that was, I got in his face all the time early on, but I don't anymore.
No, you don't.
Now what I tell him, I would say, really? And I said, will you look at me? And then that's when he would calm down and
yep.
Just
look at me. Huh?
I said, just look her in the eyes.
Well, and what I'm hearing is you guys started to recognize
unhealthy behavior.
Well, and why you're doing the things you're doing. You realize that he's not trying to just avoid the conversation. He's just letting it go. Part of being in a relationship is recognizing that we're just different. And sometimes the thing that we're seeing isn't what's actually happening. I may think that you don't give a crap because that's what your behavior is telling me, but I'm seeing that through my own lens. And what he's really doing is something different. And that's what the importance of learning each other and talking about it, because he can say, look, this is what you're seeing, but this is what I'm seeing. This is why I do what I do.
And then when he would come back, because I'm assuming he would take a break and come back and handle it.
Oh, why?
She says no.
She says no.
have.
He says yes.
I have.
Now he
Now he
has.
does. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So
But-
when he comes back, when that first time, or if you can recall, or those times that he came back, was it a reassurance to you to be like, oh,
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is
And
not
and
giving up.
he would immediately apologize first off, and then take responsibility for his part in it. You know, and I mean,
That's so important.
and
Because
and
you can't have
and
a
then
fight
I
with one
would,
person.
you know, I
It's two.
would, you know, probably elaborate a little bit more on it, you know, before I would
And
finally
you
let
did
it go. But then I would, you know, and it would be vice versa too, you know. I mean, if I owe somebody an apology, I'll say it first before I'll even know why. You know,
Anytime I get into an argument with my spouse, I always recognize the part that I played in it. Like, even when he's doing something that other people would say he's screwing up, I can recognize that maybe I played a part in it. Like, okay, maybe I was ignoring his needs, or I wasn't making him feel cared for, or, you know, I can own my part in it. And then we can talk about, like, this is what you did that upset me, but I'll own that maybe I have some responsibility
that's
in this.
important. Yeah.
See, that is so
Yeah.
healthy. That is so healthy.
yeah, we do that now. You know, I mean, there isn't a whole lot shoved under that rug anymore.
No.
You know, I can't really think of anything today.
The rug starts to get real lumpy, and then everybody's tripping over it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you talk about from then to now. So what are some of the healthiest things you guys do today?
Well, we are involved in recovery. We do 12 steps and 12 traditions. It's very, very important in our life. You know, whether it's just for myself, but it's also the traditions work well in relationships. You know, it's
Agreed.
it's us. You know, the steps kind of clean me up and open my eyes, and traditions kind of work for both of us.
Well, and
But-
that's another thing too. I just want to interrupt real quickly, babe. Whenever he would call our family meetings, that's what he would always talk about traditions,
Unity.
you know. And he said because he believed the 12 traditions had to be applied to our household.
Are you
And
guys separately working on yourselves while working on the marriage?
oh
together?
yeah, oh
I
yeah,
feel like that's such an important part of a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes you get so focused on the relationship that you lose who you are, and then you're not working on your own self, and then it's
Yes.
hard to like be in a relationship because
Yes.
you're
Well,
not,
that-
the other
that-
person's working on themselves.
yeah. I went through that, you know, the first few years of our marriage. You know, I did.
That was codependency.
Yeah, and you know, it doesn't. None of. I'm just so glad I tell Kevin we made it. You know, we made it.
So 32 years,
but
you
we're
made
not-
it,
but we're not done.
Not codependent.
We're not
Like,
done.
A lot of relationships, people think that like if they super need each other and they're all, you know, codependent, that's what makes a relationship last. And I like that you guys are saying the opposite of that. Because sometimes you get this impression that like if you're going to make a relationship last, there's no me anymore, it's only we.
Oh
And
no,
that's how you make a relationship.
No, there's got to be.
we're very selfish people.
Well, I think all humans are. I think we're designed to be.
Yeah. And there's a
We try
healthy
to push that down for the
Right.
relationship.
and there's a healthy level of selfishness. I always say
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, circling back, what other healthy things do you guys do for your relationship?
Well, we enjoy the outdoors.
So you go and do things together?
A lot. I actually will shop with her now, even though I hate to do it, but a lot of times I will go with her, and even then I gotta admit that I enjoy being with her. We'll talk, even if she's shopping and doing whatever, you know, we'll talk, and that makes it worth it. I think the thing is that we are willing to do stuff together. Working
I
on the
find importance
house.
in that too.
Yeah, working on the house. And I've taken on a lot of things. I do a lot of cleaning now. I was doing a lot of cooking. She's been doing the cooking lately, but simple things like that help because it's not just one person's responsibility. It's the unit. That's where we work together. You know,
Mm.
um, we really, I know we enjoy going to meetings. We enjoy our friends a lot. We've gone out. We've gone out shooting before together. She enjoys that. Um, I know she loves to see the grandbabies. You know, um, and the dog. That was a big deal for me. I didn't want another animal in the house. I've had we had a cat in Sholo, and Leanne, I think you remember Cream.
Hmm. Yep, Cream.
She was my, what she meant to me. And when I had to put her down, it really, really put a hole in my heart. And Terry couldn't be there, and it damaged me. I didn't want another animal. I didn't want to go through that pain again. Um, and then years later, she brings home this cat, and I took one look at the cat and took it over.
Of course.
And then, she wanted another cat. We got another cat, and unfortunately, he got sick and went. And then she wanted a dog, and she's wanted a dog for a long time. And I just didn't want another animal like that because I'm selfish. I want to be able to go and do things when I want it.
Mm.
I kept looking at ourselves and we're planning on this. We're planning on going traveling in the camper, and go out for a week and enjoy, fish and enjoy the mountains and go walking along and whatever. I sit by campfire, drink coffee, make love over the tree log if we want to or whatever.
Ooh.
Keeping
But
the excitement of that.
yeah,
Another fun tip.
that is enjoyable, believe it or not. Midnight in the Sierras, but no, the dog coming home, that was another surrender, and I love the dog. It's wonderful. But I have a connection with animals. I don't think she understands for some reason. I don't know why I do.
Some people are just animal people.
You know what's funny? I have to side note a story real quick. Somebody was trying to tell me about a person. They're like, you know this person. You know this person. They're describing the person. They're telling me their names. They're telling me who their friends are. And then they go, the big white fluffy dog. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know who that is. So I feel you.
Yeah. So,
The
and
animals.
and I didn't want to take her dog from her, and I mean, Sparkles, the cat I have a real special relationship for her for some reason. She's got a lot of my heart, and she, I see her now when I'm not there. She's starting to hang around with Terry, and she's getting her loves from Terry, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But the dog is Terry's dog, as much as I want to take her, and make sure she's Terry's dog, and that's the other part of the relationship. I got to say, it's willing to extend yourself to let your partner be them.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a good one.
And I know that's a corny saying, but that's really what love is. I mean,
Let them be who they are. Yeah, let them have the experience they need to have.
yes, and whether you think you can do it better or not, that's not the thing. It's they've got to have for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to shortchange anybody's life experience.
Oh, I love that.
And speaking of the dog, I got to let her in. She's been outside.
All right.
That's okay.
But relationships are they just are. And I think what I can say the easiest way to maintain a good one is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Okay.
I like it.
Yep.
That's to sum it up. That's what it is.
So, rapid fire. If you say you're at a relationship seminar, and they have chosen you to be an example of a long-term relationship, and there's a crowd full of couples that are just maybe having a difficult time or just starting out, and they want you to give them maybe like your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice to have a good long relationship, what would those be?
We've
And
heard
you
so
can
many
each,
good things.
you can. I want to hear each of your answers. So both of you tell me your answers. What your answers?
Okay.
Would be.
For me, acceptance of the person, acceptance of the situation, even though you don't like it at the time, or I accept Kevin as who he is, and 100%. I may not like a lot of it, at times, but that's the number one thing for me.
Awesome.
3 of them.
Whatever
You
can. Yeah.
Your turn, Kevin.
Number one, there's got to be a time, a place that has to be safe,
I love
away
that.
from fear, that you can talk to each other, where there's no blame, where there's no hate. There's only the ability to say what you need to say, no matter what. That has to happen in every relationship. There's got to be that place, whether it's once a day, once a week, whatever. You've got to do it. That's the most important, because if you can communicate, and if I can communicate to Terry that things are not going to work, I don't see them working, and she's going to understand it's not going to work no matter what you do, and then you can go your different ways if you want to, if you have to. But if you can also communicate that I love you when you do this, it makes me feel safe when we talk before bed. It makes me feel comfortable when at night I cuddle against your back and grab your left boob with my hand to sleep. Stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be open and honest, and there's got to be that point that it was just 5 minutes. That's the most important to me, because that's just the rules for everything.
And it kind of brings back to after when he had come home after his
infidelity.
Yes. Still hard for me to say what it is, but that's what it was. When he and I would get together every day after work, we'd sit out on the patio, and I felt totally safe being able to tell him exactly how I was feeling. And we did that for months. And I think that was our big turning point, on how to communicate.
I had a question for Kevin, or well, both of you. Does it take a level of understanding yourself to be able?
I was going to ask that.
Look at this. To be able to recognize, because you're saying, I feel this way because you do this. Does it take that level of understanding of self to be able to communicate that?
Well,
yeah. If you don't know yourself, how are you going to know what you need?
Right.
You're in the psychotherapy field, okay? So you understand all that. I have a basic understanding of it from. I was pretty sharp when I was young, and I read a whole lot. So I am intuitively can figure things out, we'll say.
Where are you?
All right, and so what I can say is the steps have opened my eyes further, into being that intuitive person, and to see the relationships between ideals and practices, faith, work, the sun, the moon, whatever you want to say. It's only through doing these steps that that self introspection that clears that trash and the fears that we teach ourselves. Our folks don't teach us that. We learn that stuff ourselves. When we're really young, we learn how to deal with the world in our own way. You know what I mean? And yeah, we see stuff and we try to emulate that, but still, we learn how to deal with it our own way. And unless you have a parent that can see that happening right away and steer you differently, that's the way it's going to be. And that causes a lot of the damages in our lives. And later on in life, if you're lucky, like we have been, you get to see that stuff, that damage, and the false ideas, the incorrect ideas of love, of hate, of whatever, men and women not being equal. They are equal. We are equal. And that's, men not being able to have feelings. I'm blessed with being able to have them, I guess. Now, at sometimes it's regretful at times because it's disabling. I remember hearing, I got the phone call about Jeremy when I was at the grocery store, trying to get my groceries out, and I'm in the line.
It's hard to have feelings. And it's hard to deal with those feelings, especially when you're in a public place.
Oh, God. And I had to drive home.
And I wasn't even here in Arizona either. I got the call with my mom when I was I'd been in California for about 3.5 months. And so he was home alone. He was here alone. And but I made it. I came home that night. I headed home right away.
Yeah, life tests us with these big, heavy griefs. And I think that a big part of being in relationship is being there to support one another. Do you allow each other to feel your sadness and just like support each other, or what does that look like in times when it's really tough like that?
I couldn't tell you how we would deal with it before, but now I don't know, it's coming natural for us. I know it's taken a lot of time, and like I said, our love for each other with the trust and the faith and the beliefs that we both have in our morals, really has, it's made it come natural for us, on how to be there for each other. And I think, we learned that too initially, when we got into recovery, because of the support that we would give each other, with the disease. So, it's a lot of listening and a lot of talking. Yeah. And we need to take turns. We can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
But there's also emoting, which is different. That's the learned behavior that has changed a lot of the hate and the fear. Okay, and that's come through practice, and now it's not even practice anymore. It's natural. Yeah. Just natural. And
I want to ask one final question, and I only bring this up because Terry had previously recommended a book called The Adult Chair.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering if you guys have any resources, like other books that you found helpful in your own personal journeys and in your journeys together that you felt were like life changing, that you would recommend to our listeners. Books, podcasts, programs, anything that just comes to mind. I'm sure there's probably a lot.
Well, my sponsor Jack, but he's unfortunately passed.
We can't give Jack to everybody, unfortunately.
No. But what you can give is the knowledge that is available at meetings, open meetings. Okay, open 12-step meetings are available to everybody. You don't have
For
to be,
almost everything too nowadays.
and you don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict. Whatever, you can go to those things and just listen, and you will hear things that will astound you. And the truth, I mean, I know, and I'm having trouble with this right now. I'm having real trouble with the higher power right now. I really am. I'm not afraid to admit it. I mean, I'm pretty angry. But I know there is something up there that speaks through us, or even animals, or whatever, and that message is clear, and that's a message of love, and trust, and you hear that. So as a book, well, yeah, the AA big text, I guess, or NA text. I mean, those are helpful. They really are, and not just if you have a problem with alcohol. I mean, or chemicals, whatever. My problems weren't with alcohol or drugs. Those are solutions. My problems with myself. The behaviors I learned taught myself to live life, to actually survive life.
Yeah.
As being young. And a lot of that was wrong. And so, like you've heard it. I know you've heard it. And you got to tear yourself back down. You've got to tear the puzzle apart and reassemble it. And however you do that is however you do that. But there's a lot of books out there that so I can't say any specific book. I mean, Jonathan Livingston Seagull gave me a lot of hope. The book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, gave me a lot of hope. That's a good book. But basically, the basic text, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. And, some say that came from a group called the Oxford Group years and years ago, which was a religious, not a cult, but, So, and then Bill Wilson did something with them too, but, him and Dr. Bob and whatever, but, and I'm not going to say, read the Bible, I've read it, but anything that you search for is going to help you if you're in that, if you're seeking.
Yeah, if you're in that mindset for growth.
Yeah, if you're seeking,
it'll come to you. I promise.
It will come to you. It will. It will.
So seek it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to, like you said, to want to find help, or, there's so many different types of self-help books out there. But I tell you that most recent one that I went through, and I went through it twice, The Adult Chair, really, really, hit home with me. And I couldn't believe, and it's kind of like, yeah, okay, it really explains a lot of things about me, and that's why, I recommended that. But there's a lot of books, there's the Four Agreements too, that is a real good book. And then, I'm not really a reader. I don't.
Neither am I.
Yeah, and so the if I do read something, it's got to be something I'm going to finish, and that I am going to get something out of it. And but I get a lot of my help in that by talking. I don't, and read a lot of reading other things too. It's their opinion, you know.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and it may be their experience that you might be able to relate to, but you still have to process it one way or another, you know, and reading how somebody else did it, it may not work the same way for you, you know. So
in a few months, we're doing a mini series on grief. And
Oh,
I don't know
man.
if we could, I don't know, we're having this lady on named Christine Hotchkiss who lost her daughter when she was 17. And she now helps people who have had children that have passed away kind of process and deal with their grief. And I don't know if maybe you guys want to talk to her. She's a really nice woman, could benefit you in your journey towards working through some of that grief. Because I think she's experienced a lot of what you guys may be experiencing now.
thank you, you know, me
No
personally.
pressure. You don't have to.
Yeah,
I
I
just
know,
thought I'd offer
but
that.
and I know there's a lot of help out there, and but you know, and it goes back to when, you know, when I first got clean, my thinking, and it is, you know, I'm unique, you know, so you know, you can't tell me, you know, what's going to help me, because what helped you may not work for me, you know. That terminal uniqueness. And in this case with Jeremy, I'm feeling that. This is really unique. And I really don't want to talk to anybody but my husband, you know, and I have talked to my sponsor a little bit about it. But no, you know, I'm just not ready, you know, to hear anybody else's help, because I still have a lot to process, and Kevin, I know, has a lot to process, and with each other too, you know, and
I think it's important that you know that and that you are aware of where you are in this journey, you know?
well, and that's where I'm at. You know, I don't know if Kevin's in the same spot that I'm in, but I kind of have a feeling he is, because like I said, we've been pretty open, you know, with each other. And this it's too much, and I think it's on a whole different level of the grief that we're gonna have to deal with, and I just don't know how yet.
Well, you guys definitely have each other, and that's wonderful.
You've provided a lot of assistance, I think, and really good tips and honesty and stories for our listeners, and as far as relationships and how to make one last. And we appreciate your guys' time and you guys coming on.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, this was more than I could have ever anticipated, and I've had several intellectual and critical conversations with you guys, so I definitely appreciate this one.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Leanna.
Well, thank you for asking us, and I'm sorry it just took so long for us to finally do this.
That's
You're
okay.
fine.
Scheduling is tricky
You know,
sometimes.
it worked out the way it was supposed to,
Yeah, and what was going
exactly
on.
what it needed.
Yeah, and what was going on, you know, with me having to be in California and deal with that, you know, take care of my mom, and then we lose Jeremy, and you know, on the holiday, it was. I'm sorry. I'm just so sorry.
No,
Kept
don't
moving.
apologize.
This is exactly what was supposed to happen.
Yep.
So thank you
Okay.
guys. Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing, and our listeners, if you hear anything that speaks to you, like, please email, message, whatever to us. If you
Share with somebody that you know.
if you're in the
could hear
recovery
some of
world
this.
and you want to connect to Terry and Kevin, I know that you guys are open to doing that, so I'm going to throw you out there if you want to.
That's fine. That's fine, man.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, and I appreciate your time, and I love you guys.
I love you too. Love you too, Holly. Thank you.
Love you too.
Thank you.
I love you, Dave.
Bye bye.
Hey, don't hang up.
Love you, honey.
Okay.